Hi.
Hi. Before we start talking about this particular project, maybe you could tell us a little bit about you. So you're in France at the moment. That's where your family's from and everything. But you've been studying at the Royal College of Arts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
have you always had an interest in art and making things, or?
Yeah, I've started really early because when I was 15, I went to a kind of art and design lycée, we say, it's kind of high school equivalent. But I have a formation in product design. And from there, I kind of got away from the very kind of functional aspect of the object and just started to, question more this kind of the idea of matter and the idea of the alive kind of aspect. I always talk about animus aspect in an object. So then, I kind of went into installation and sculpture and art in the Royal College of Art. Yeah.
So you were interested in objects and them being animate or not. So how did you come from that to making these beautiful sculptures, which were the first bits of work that I saw of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I was always kind of interested in the idea of material and how matter has an agency. While I was making the mobiles, I was wondering a lot about the relationship between myself and the materials I was shaping. So, I was working with their tension and they were shaping me and I was shaping them, basically. So, yeah.
So you started working with these mobiles, and at some point you started, because I remember when you first got in touch with me, you had already come across the idea of it working with ideas in quantum physics a little bit. How did you get onto that?
I started to wonder about this idea of movement and kind of this reciprocity that exists between things. And so I stumbled upon this quantum physics idea of entanglement, and how two things at a distance can interact with each other and can influence each other. So from there, I kind of delved into this idea of quantum physics and discovered Karen Barad as well, and her idea of interaction and how, focusing on the links and the relations between things rather than the things themselves, and how those relations and interaction kind of define the things and so the objects, rather than the objects being this kind of a lone entity completely uprooted from their environment. So I think that was really interesting for me. It's like a shift of perspective, when you delve into quantum physics ideas.
So you've been working with these mobiles and working with the idea of interaction between what you're making and you both shaping each other, and the ideas in quantum physics that echo that kind of thing. And then you got in touch with Southwest Dance Theatre.
Yes.
How come?
Absolutely. Well, so I guess once I finished the mobiles, and I was working on the relationships happening while I was working on the mobiles. Once it was kind of up and showed to an audience, now that no one was looking at me kind of building this thing, what was interesting was still the mobiles were being in contact with humans, and the body and how the two could influence each other. So that's why I ended up contacting your super beautiful dance company, and so to see what interactions could emerge.
And I know I practically bet your hand off to get on, but it's not been the easiest project, not least because as we managed to get our ideas together and finally come to the point where we were going to have this beautiful exhibition with the mobiles and the dancers and going to schools talking about physics through dance and everything, COVID-19 locked down the world. So we had to change things a little bit. But right at the beginning of lockdown, you were already talking about animating these
the mobiles. Yeah, absolutely.
How has that been? So you came at it from sort of a sensory sort of clay and metal working on something in the real world, and all of a sudden it's just software manipulation of
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not my background either. Which is, and I thought about it and I thought it was quite funny the fact that most of the time nowadays we work in, rendering and digitalization, and then maybe we build the structure afterwards, and I worked backwards.
yeah.
But it emerged when I was working with the mobiles and this idea of lights, because I was projecting their shadows, and it was really interesting to see how lots of people thought that the shadows were actually a render images and an animation of the mobiles already, and I was trying to make the mobiles interact with lights and understanding how those two dimensions come together, this 2D and 3D. And so, I guess COVID was actually a really good kind of occasion to like transfer the mobiles into this kind of 2D world. And with you dancing, we still have this kind of maybe not clash, but suddenly like meeting of the 3D kind of reality of our world, and still this more intangible of abstract 2D kind of dimension. So I think that's good.
And in terms of the whole sort of action at a distance, the whole social distancing thing has been kind of a rather unfortunately topical backdrop because everything's distant now. Mm-mm. There is no contact.
But so we were talking how it's actually really interesting in terms of our topics, right? This idea of action at a distance, which is quantum physics theory, and how so two things interact at a distance and you don't see any tangible links, or it seems as in there's no kind of connection between the two, but actually they still shape each other. So I guess that's within the project we still kind of managed to do that, which is great. When it's not only a representation, the actual process kind of embody ideas that you're working with. And I think that's what I love about quantum physics, theories that beyond the kind of scientific demonstration of it, you have all those philosophical principles that you can apply in real life, and that completely, make us change or shift our perspective when we think about relations or dynamic or even, nature and our environment.
Great. Well, hopefully we've whetted everybody's appetite. So we'll let the rest of the little piece speak to itself. But I think it's just worth giving a special mention to James Millen at King's College London, who lent me his time for a quick interview. And he's got a much better way of describing all these things than I ever could hope to. And
same with me.
And your beautiful construction with this video, with the animations and everything, just really bring it to life. So let's let everybody see.